Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC.
This episode of Retail Retold is brought to you by the Dealey Group. For more than 25 years, the Dealey Group has partnered with the commercial real estate industry to deliver brand strategy, integrated marketing programs, and content production that drive tenant sales, stakeholder confidence, and leasing velocity. To learn more about the Dealey Group, visit thedealeygroup.com. That's TheDealeygroup.com.
Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. Today I'm joined by Natalie Chambers. Natalie is from the Dealey Group, and she's been on the show before. Excited to have her. Natalie, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me again. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Tell a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, my name is Natalie Chambers, as you just said, and I am the Executive Creative Director at the Dealey Group, and that is a full-service advertising agency in Dallas, Texas. We have been partnering with the commercial real estate industry for over 25 years. So we've been doing this for quite a long time. And ultimately, our goal at the Dealey Group is to help commercial real estate owners improve their property performance through strategic marketing. So that's mainly the gist of it.
Awesome. So what have you been working on lately?
Yeah, so recently at the Dealey Group, we have been working to compile our mid-year trends. We generally do a trend deck to kick off the beginning of the year, and then we do a secondary one mid-year. And we have a team of 30 ish content creators out there doing a lot of social listening, and we scour, read articles, and put together some consumer trends that we're seeing lately. So that's what we've been working on.
And enlighten us. What have you been seeing?
It's a fun thing to get kind of reports from the field, but we have been seeing a lot of interest in Gen X recently. We've been seeing a lot of pop culture trends that are kind of bringing Gen X pop culture back around. I don't know if you are keyed into Amy Poehler's podcast, Good Hang. Have you watched or listened to any of those?
I am not keyed in, but I've seen clips.
Okay. She's kind of having a moment. She's very much a Gen X figure. We've seen a lot of fashion trends kind of leading Gen X. We've seen a lot of Princess Di fashion. We've seen, I don't know if you saw that Costco brought back an Esprit sweatshirt recently, and it sold out, and Gen X was going crazy trying to get their hands on these Costco sweatshirts that were just for the brand Esprit. So it seems that there's some nostalgia and that Gen X is having a moment.
Got it. And so that's from the field.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. Is there some data behind that you guys have compiled outside of what the field's brought you, but any numbers supporting the thesis?
Yeah. So generally how this works is we kind of get these field reports and then we dive deeper to see if there's any kind of merit, understand why this is happening. And it's really interesting when we started looking into this and researching Gen X overall as a consumer group, we found some pretty powerful numbers behind the cohort. It turns out that in 2025, Gen X was globally, and I'm talking globally, not just in the US, was a $15.2 trillion consumer cohort. That's how much money that they spent. And if you take that into consideration, that makes them the second largest spenders in the world, only second to the US. They are actually a bigger consumer market than China.
Wow.
So that one generation.
So let's define, for those who don't know, what is the time period of Gen Xers? When were they born?
Yeah, I'm bad at the dates. I know it's 79, 80-ish to
I think it's
15
not
years from then. So
right.
they're
It's like
45.
1965 to 1980. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyone who is currently 45 to 60, which also happens to be me. So I'm especially interested in the spending power of Gen X and why it is a cultural phenomenon.
And what is the phenomenon?
I think, okay, so obviously now we're going to like jump into a couple of theories that we have come up with and we like to toss around. So I'd really love your point of view on this. But
Okay.
here is what I think the phenomenon is. First of all, I just want to say something about Gen X. They're actually known as the forgotten generation because generally they are very quiet, head down, hard workers. All the generations above and below them are getting all the like airtime. We always hear about millennials and Gen Z, but you never really hear that much about Gen X. So they're really kind of the dark horse in this whole situation. So I will just set that up as that they just kind of came out of nowhere in terms of consumer spending, I feel like. Um, the reason I think that they have such great influence and spending power is that they are obviously in their prime money making years. But they are also influencing groups on either side of their generation. So they're influencing the groups below them in terms of like their children and their grandchildren, and they're influencing the spending power of their parents as well. They're kind of this sandwich generation holding all of the generations together and kind of making things work, if you will. They're juggling everything at this point in time. So they influence a lot of spending power, and then they also spend a lot of money to keep all those plates spinning.
Got it. So one of the things that I've researched that I think is interesting is, people are marrying and having children later.
Hmm.
So 45 to 60 has always been like a peak income time period for people. But on the back half of that, spending has historically decreased.
Yeah.
Now, you have kids at home in college, aging parent responsibilities, and people just having kids and marrying later.
Yeah.
And so they have unique spending habits for sure. Um, you talked about some of the cultural things. Are you seeing anyone do anything about the fact that Gen X is a dark horse and they're spending more than people think, and they've kind of been this group that not many have marketed to,
Hmm.
um, and maybe there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually that a lot of the trends in social media are starting to speak towards this Gen X mindset, which in general, the Gen X mindset is they want things to have quality, be efficient, and be clear. They love quality, efficiency, and clarity above all things. So we're seeing a lot of trends when it comes to in social media, with brands and with consumers about like buying quality items, buying things that last. There's a trend called it's worth the money, where consumers and brands kind of tout their item as being worth the spend because it's high
Is that like
quality.
a Reddit subreddit? That feels like it's a Reddit subreddit.
It probably is. I just know that there's tons of like TikTok content out there that like is about being worth the money and then showing an item. And then there's also just a lot of trends around just making sure that like you're buying things that are going to last a long time. And it's just about more thoughtful consumer spending. And I think brands are jumping onto that. And then I also think that commercial real estate is kind of coming around to that too, which leads me to my next theory, if you will.
Let's go.
So last year, CoStar reported that 2025, for the first time ever, services
Least more
surpassed,
space
yes,
than retail.
yes, leased more space than consumer goods. And that was really surprising to me because you would expect that there would be some kind of cultural ebb and flow over time where like services kind of pulled ahead and consumer goods fell behind in the leasing realm. But this is the first time ever that services actually surpassed goods. And I have a theory that that is because Gen X is driving that trend. They need and want help, services, experiences, ways to entertain both their mothers and their children at the same time. And that has surpassed their need for actual consumer goods.
That's a take. That's interesting. That might be the case. I think there's also something to be said there on the landlord side, that landlords deciding about a balance of a shopping center,
Yeah,
and what is the right balance of food and beverage, experience, pure goods players, mixed players, service only players. And I
yeah,
think landlords are getting more thoughtful in curating that mix across the country.
yeah,
And so I think that plays a part in it. That said, um, businesses open up that think they're going to do well. And, clearly services continues to do that. I would say a lot of these services are like what I'll call quasi retail.
hmm,
And I also think part of it is retail real estate is the closest real estate to the end consumer in America,
hmm,
right? It's, usually office and industrials further out. And all these industries are trying to get closer to the consumer.
hmm,
And so if you were healthcare in 2008 and you said to yourself, all right, I want as many services as possible that don't require an overnight stay out of the hospital and closer to the consumer. And so the healthcare industry went, and what did they do? They ended up opening urgent cares and shopping centers all across America.
yeah,
And so I think part of that is just business model change where, these services saw like, hey, retailers have a strong concept about how they locate stores. We want to mimic that for our business and therefore end up in retail real estate. So I think that's part of it as well.
yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I also agree with your take on landlords being more savvy about their mix on properties. I feel like we've talked a lot internally and with our clients about creating that self-sustaining ecosystem of return visits through whether it be like regular appointments at a physical therapist or getting your eyes checked. That keeps like people coming back and returning and makes this closed ecosystem for the property. It kind of guarantees you visits. So I do think that people are getting savvy, landlords in particular, about building those ecosystems with the service industry, as well as the changes you've talked about in terms of like, medical becoming direct to consumer on some levels.
Yeah. Okay. What's the next theory? Number 3.
My theory, it is not related directly to commercial real estate in particular, but I kind of feel like Gen X have become the shamans of our time. And I say this because they are the only generation that experienced both pre-digital and post-digital life. They came of age before the internet even came online. I'm 47. I got my first email address as a senior in high school. So my whole childhood was digital free, and I experienced that. And then I also work in a field where I've had to try to start adopting AI. So we really do straddle. We're like, dual citizens of these two worlds. So I feel like the younger generations look to us as for recommendations for what is it like in the time before. And they're kind of looking to us also to lead the way into this, brave new future where none of us know where we're going. I mean, we did have corded landlines, so we did. We know what it's like to, be very basic and then also to like live in this very complicated world. So I do think that people are looking to Gen X to kind of share or, I don't know, lead the way in what is going to happen next. And I think that's why they're leading a lot of consumer trends in general.
So if we take that though, right,
Mhm.
is that not the obligation of that age cohort in every generation? Like, what makes Gen X unique that in 20 years millennials won't be in the same exact spot doing the same exact things?
I mean, I think it's exactly that pre-digital era. And the reason I say that is because the things that are romanticized about Gen X are the analog things. So I don't know if you've seen the popularity of analog, like kids carrying around analog bags. It's bags filled with things that don't require any like digital presence. It's got crochet in there and crossword books and things like that. Film usage was up last year by like 300%, I believe the statistic was. So, younger generations are going back to using film, buying vinyl. Vinyl sales are up. So I think that it's that romanticizing the analog lifestyle, and Gen X came of age during that time, and they're the only ones who can truly share what it's like to live that.
Got it. Um, Super interesting. Are there any more theories? Do you have any more theories?
No, that is probably the biggest theory,
All
I
right.
think, is that,
So let's recap the three.
okay. So the three theories are that number one, Gen X is kind of this sandwich generation that is driving a lot of purchases, not only themselves, but for the two generations above and below them, because they have all this disposable income themselves, but they're also caring for a lot of millennials and Gen Z, and then they're also caring for their boomer parents. So they are driving a lot of the spending in multiple generations. And they also are just driving trends in general in terms of, like the popularity of the Esprit sweatshirt, as I mentioned. The second theory that I highlighted was that they are potentially driving leasing of service oriented businesses within commercial real estate for the first time ever over consumer goods. And the third theory is that they are the shamans of this time. They are kind of like the village elders who remember the knowledge of the pre-digital era that everyone else is starting to forget. So all the generations are looking towards them to, find a way forward in this new AI world.
Do you think so that was super helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you think that millennials will take over in 10 years in the same way that Gen X is having a moment?
No, I do not think so, because millennials were raised completely different than the Gen X generation was. I mean, we were left to our own devices. That's why we're so like fierce and tenacious, and we put our heads down and get stuff done. We were kind of like left to raise ourselves. So I think that that's why Gen X is like bearing the weight of all of this, like taking care of all of these generations and keeping all the stories and leading everyone forward, is that it's our nature to do so. And I'm not sure that that's true for the millennial generation. I'm not sure what role the millennial generation will play when they reach 45 to 60.
Interesting. Are there you mentioned vinyl and film and this analog piece. Are there any other like things that have come back because of Gen X?
I think just the overall like nostalgia piece is pretty strong. And I think things like you've seen Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I think that Stranger Things points to that. Like, they're riding around on BMX bikes in the woods, and, like everyone's got on their 80s clothes. And I think that people are longing for times like that. So I think that's why there's a lot of popular entertainment that's kind of leaning into the nostalgia piece these days. Um, so definitely that. And I mentioned earlier that a lot of fashion is centered around Gen X styles that we're seeing come out now. So
Yeah, you know what's interesting? You mentioned the BMX bikes. You know, kids today struggle with being bored,
yes.
right? Like if you've ever tried to, I have a 7 and a 9-year-old. If you've ever tried to like let them be bored,
Oh,
it's
it's
very hard. It's
yeah.
very hard.
I have a
Whereas like
yeah.
growing up in that era, like being bored, it was like a rite of passage. You had to know how to be bored.
Yeah. Definitely. I have a 7 and 10-year-old as well, and you would think that they were dying when they have to sit for, like, 10 we just traveled internationally, and they had to sit a lot and be bored, when their iPad died and stuff on the train, and it's like, "Tough cookies, guys. You just have to, like, ride this out. I'm sorry. Look out the window. Count trees. I don't care."
Yeah. Yeah, driving without devices on a long ride
Oh,
is
wait. Do you have a rule? Like, do you
what
have a hard and fast rule? Like, our rule is it has to be an hour or more to bring a device in the car.
uh we don't have a hard and fast rule. I would tell you generally, and
Uh-huh.
this is less me, more my wife. We have my kids are growing up a bit more analog than probably most.
That's
Um
awesome.
they're using tech for school in which the school provides, but in general, outside of using an iPad for school or on like a flight, my kids are not regularly using an iPad. They're definitely now they have other things, right? Like my basement is a Lego museum.
Mhm.
And so they do that. There's tons of arts and crafts going on. There's
Awesome.
a lot of reading going on. So that stuff is good.
Yeah.
But but that was available when we were all kids. We just didn't have as plentiful and as much and as the access that my kids have today.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so
you had, like, 2 Lego sets because they were
yeah,
expensive.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I
Well,
I have a pretty I have like a Lego museum
that's
going on.
awesome, dude. That's great. I mean, then you are definitely, like, raising some kiddos who would kind of feel at home in the Gen X generation, I feel
You know,
like.
there's parts they would from that, but there's
Yeah.
parts that you mentioned that they wouldn't, right? Like I think the and how we parent. I think the individual responsibility and like left to their own devices.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's a difference between like, you know, being left to play for a couple hours in the basement with Legos versus going riding your BMX bikes in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
That like, and that's not a
It's
difference. Like
different.
my kids go outside and play, but they're not BMX biking in the woods by themselves for a few hours where we have no idea where they are and
Right.
um you know all that good stuff. That's not happening. So
Yeah.
so I said a little bit, but they're not fully embracing that Gen X lifestyle any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. No, I hear ya. No, and I mean, some of the things my parents let me do, like ride the bus home, by myself with, a friend whose parents weren't home, and we got to walk up to the local store and stuff like that would never happen today. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we were just tougher, or maybe the parents were more lax. I'm not sure which, but
How how does let are you do you feel like this is worldwide? You sit in Sweden. Do you feel the same about America or Sweden, or is this isolated to America?
no, I think it's worldwide. I mean, I do have a different situation because I'm in Sweden and I'm in rural Sweden and our town is like 500 people. So my kids do ride their bikes around, but the parents are still way more, I guess, hands-on now from what I've heard locally than they were back in the day. So I think all parents are a little bit more tuned in to what their kids are doing and raising them in different ways these days. So I think it's global. I think kids have become like a important resource, and we realize how important parenting is. So no one's going to just phone it in as much these days.
What's the weather like in Sweden this time of year?
It's gorgeous. It's like 70 degrees.
70. Okay. How
Yeah,
long do you get
75.
that?
For about another 2 weeks, and then it's going to become fall, and it'll be in the 50s and 60s.
50s and 60s. And how
Yeah,
long does it stay there before it gets to like you need a parka?
a month. It goes
Um,
fast.
it goes fast. It gets cold
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah. I did want to talk to a couple of things that I think are other retail trends we're seeing in regards to Gen X that I can
Let's
throw out
see.
for you.
Let's hear it.
I think that a lot of the services that we're seeing pop up that are centered around longevity are driven by Gen X. So it's health, and it's playing in the health and wellness realm, but not necessarily in beauty. It's more in longevity. And I think it's
Mm,
because Gen X realizes, like, dang, I need to be around a long time to fulfill all of these obligations that I have. Like I feel like this sense of responsibility for like taking care of your body so you can just last a long time. So I think that's why we're seeing kind of this uptick in things like IV therapy and red light treatments and things like that, because Gen X is like, I got to make the best of this, man. And it's not necessarily about the way you look, it's more about the way you care for your body. So I think
mm.
a lot of services like that are driven by the Gen X mentality.
It's an interesting take on longevity versus beauty, for sure. I see that. There's definitely more discussions of longevity. Personally recently got on I'm not Gen X yet. I'm a millennial, but
Yeah.
uh not that I will be Gen X. I'm a millennial, but uh definitely thinking through longevity stuff, got on a pretty nice health and wellness kick starting in April and still on it, feeling, and the amount of things on my news feed about they're dominated by health and wellness that are metabolic age and you know drink this supplement. The amount of stuff out there about longevity is pretty fascinating right now.
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's driven by a generation that just understands that they need to be, yeah, active for a long time. And maybe one of the first generations who's really kind of driven to do that. I also think that in combination with AI, of course, but I think that Gen X is really also driving content that centers around human um, feedback. So things like reviews, the value of reviews is really high, ranks really high in the Gen X cohort, and that's because it is human. It's not AI generated. It's real people giving their real opinions. But I think that Gen X values that a lot. So I'm seeing a lot more content around reviews, particularly around reviews of centers, reviews of retailers, that sort of thing, and it being valued in social media. So that's interesting.
So that is interesting. I have a whole different take on reviews. Like,
Oh, okay.
do you leave reviews?
Um, do I leave
So
reviews?
just you
I
could
will give
stop
a
there.
5 star. Yeah,
You
I
could
will
stop
give a
there though.
5 star.
I don't know a lot of people who actually leave reviews, even though
Yeah.
yet, right? People care about the reviews. We're reading these reviews, yet I am like very intrigued by reviews too, because the amount of people I know who like, and I go through phases where when we're talking about reviews, like in the workforce, like I'll ask them, do you leave reviews? No. Okay. Do
Hmm.
you leave reviews? No. And the amount of people and so I'm like, who are these people leaving reviews and
Mhm.
why do we trust them so much?
Yeah.
Because most people's inner circle, if you ask people, most of your inner circle are not review leavers.
Okay. I'm gonna ask around.
but yet we trust people who leave reviews. And they're
Yeah.
not because we lack the time, right? Most people, I think the majority of people, if they have a bad experience, are more apt to just not go again than they are to leave something negative on a review.
Yeah.
And people who have a great experience, they're more apt to just return than they are to leave a review. Otherwise, why would so many people have to beg for people to leave reviews? Please review. Please leave a 5-star review. Please review. Please review. Subscribe and review. Because most people aren't.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the retailers that incentivize you to leave a review, or I don't know, like I do think there is something to be said for getting your customer base to leave reviews. The way that you're talking about them now and how seldom they are and how hard they are to get kind of make them valuable, right?
Well, that comes into what type of person leaves a review.
Yeah. Then we get into psychology.
Right.
Then it
Yeah.
becomes like a
That's
whole
what that's
thing
the
of like,
yeah.
are we getting a like a true cross section of
That's
society?
my point, because I think like only a certain type of person leaves a review, not negative or positive, just a certain type of person leaves
What
a
do you
review.
But what do you think about the rise of these kind of like sub-social sites like Rotten Tomatoes where movie goers are leaving reviews? And I kind of buy into the Rotten Tomatoes reviews. I feel, for movies, I feel like they're genuine and they're pretty on point. Um the Watchers reviews. And then, like you can follow people. I don't know if you can leave reviews on Strava for the running, but like people are like getting into these like subcultures and social where they're like interacting and it's not Instagram, but it's a very specific genre like running or books or movies. And not reviews are pretty big deal in those spaces. And if you think about it, Reddit is just chock full of reviews, more or less.
Yeah. Well, I Reddit's too big to I think those are two different things. Those like subculture groups though, I think when you say reviews, I don't think we can use a broad brushstroke. So if you're in some like running Facebook group,
Yeah.
those people are closer to friends than they are random strangers that you're listening to leaving a review. You're
Yeah.
seeing them post all the time. You're seeing what they're doing. You're seeing their name when they review, not some potential alias just uh or just one word of what the user ID of the person on
Yeah.
a review. So I think that's my point, is like
Yeah.
you're more apt, right? If your mom calls you and tells you like this restaurant is fantastic, you're more apt to go do that than you are by reading a review. It's going to supersede that. That's why
Yeah.
those are, my opinion, are more valuable in the just the sphere of Google reviews. Listen, I look at those restaurants. We all have like a minimum star rating. Like if it's this star rating, we're not going to this restaurant. We
Right.
all have that. But then, as we sit here and we talk about it, and well, why are we doing that when the reality is I know very few people who leave reviews.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. But still, they are a really interesting social currency at this point in time.
They're very interesting social currency. I'm not disputing the
Yeah.
value of positive reviews. I'm questioning why we put so much weight into them.
Yeah.
As
I mean,
right?
in this day and age, I think it's just because it's a human. And the further that we go into this AI adventure, human things will be valued more.
Maybe I think that's a leap, because I
Yeah.
think we valued reviews on Google way
Long
before
before
AI.
AI. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we did. And like to a stranger who we don't know. And I think that in general, there's like again, not positive or negative, but there's a certain type of person who's leaving a review.
Yeah.
Um, right? There's
Yeah.
just a right. It's definitely like, here's one for you. You think like, I think that people of immense success get access to new and interesting things often first,
Yeah.
right? Do you think like celebrities and CEOs and famous athletes are leaving reviews?
No.
No, so that's a whole cohort out. Those are usually people who have access. They have tried many different things
Mm-hmm.
in the same genre, and they're usually first. So they're one of the first to try.
Yeah.
And yet they're not leaving reviews. Now,
No.
do I want to listen to them? That's a whole different piece. My point is a certain type of person who's leaving a review,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the question is, are we getting a full cross
Section.
sections, because of that?
Yeah. No, I hear you. Another thing I wanted to bring up is these centers who are, remodeling, reformatting to have kind of green spaces in the center of them. Like I'm thinking of a childhood center right by my house, and it was your basic open air, yeah, regular old center with just some regular shops. And they totally redid the whole thing. They put a park down the middle of it. There's a place for kids to play. There's a yard for, sitting on and kids to run. And they put restaurants and retailers all around it in a square. So I mean, I feel like that is also something that is appealing to the Gen X audience because you can go there and you can like turn your kids loose. You can sit grandma down and give her a taco at Taco Deli or whatever it is. And you can go like run your errands and get stuff done. So these like multi-generational revamps of these, neighborhood centers, I think is another thing that's structured to make Gen X's life easier. Because I
Interesting.
mean, every time I go somewhere, I'm juggling my mom and my kids, and I have to find this common ground for all of us and get stuff done. It's insane. So I mean I
Is your
know that
mom in Sweden too?
no, this is when I go back to Dallas.
Got it.
But I really feel like that is kind of a sign of the times of, less us all getting together and trying to like accomplish something at once. And developers, centers realizing this and kind of reworking it to be a more pleasant experience.
Okay. I'll take
Yeah.
that. Anything else?
We did find out that 42% of consumers are going to shop more intentionally for the holiday season. And I feel like that's driven by Gen X too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so when you say more intentionally, you mean like specific purpose, not just browsing around and like, oh, let me buy
Yeah,
this, let me buy this.
more intentionally buying gifts that are more functional, like just being more intentional with what they're gifting people and how they shop. Shopping earlier, starting, planning appropriately around sales, that sort of thing. And all of those, like when you start seeing numbers that are kind of high, that to me indicates people who are, getting stuff done. And that's really a Gen X kind of quality. So I think the holiday season is going to be about, functional gifts and getting stuff done.
Got it. I
Yeah.
like it. All right. If you're going to sum this up in such a not so pretty bow, what's the Gen X summary?
Um, Gen X is the overlooked generation that is kind of a spending dark horse, spending trillions of dollars annually. And they're generally overlooked. And I feel like commercial real estate, retail real estate in particular, should pay attention to what Gen X is looking for in an experience, in products, in services all around, because they have such incredible spending power themselves and incredible spending influence over other generations.
All right. We'll drop the mic on that. Natalie, this has been great. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and research on the topic. Uh, look
Am I one
forward
of
to,
your crazier guests?
yes. I'm kidding. I love giving answers to people that they don't think you're going to say and then go.
No, it's fine. I mean, I didn't expect myself to be like a normal. I'm a normal retail real estate kind of person, but I was
All
just
good.
curious.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Have a good
Bye.
one.
You too.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.